Lucky for you, right? All right. Joining us right now is our good friend, Susan Ferrechio, Washington Examiner's chief congressional correspondent. Hello, Susan.
Hey, how are you?
Good. I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Okay. I got to tell you what I'm watching. Well, first of all, mate, are you outside walking around?
I am. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. All right.
Every day.
Okay. Before we get to what's happening on the floor of the Senate, which is major news, I'm watching, if you could believe this, I'm watching Bill Clinton interview Barack Obama at the Clinton Global Initiative thingamajig on health care. In other words, Bill Clinton says, so this is really great. I don't know if he calls him Barack. Could you tell us how great it is? He said, glad you asked that, Bill. I mean, this is insane.
Sure. Well, I mean, they need to get the word out about the health care law. And, Clinton considered a great communicator. And so they've got him helping Obama once again, kind of helping big amount of the poll on health care to try to get more people to enroll in the exchanges, get involved, because the entire law hinges on how many people enroll. And right now, they don't have enough people enrolled. Everybody knows that it's not enough interest. People don't know about it. Once the exchange is open, there's a fear that it's going to collapse. And so I think that's why you're seeing all this big rollout and this dialogue between the two presidents, getting a lot of attention. It's highlighting the fact that the health care law is about to start to be implemented beginning in October. And Clinton's good at it. He's great at talking about it. This will be the second major thing Bill Clinton has done in the past couple months on health care law rollout, and I expect you'll probably hear more from him.
Okay, so they're talking in New York, and at the same time, talking on the floor of the Senate is one Senator Ted Cruz, who a couple of hours ago started his promised filibuster. And you need to explain to me, and by the way, your connection sounds much better. Thank you. You got to explain to me. He's filibustering. He says he'll speak until he can't stand anymore. But then, I don't know how long that'll last. But he explained to the people what he's doing. He's actually filibustering the continuing resolution that the House sent over, which defunded Obamacare.
Well, right, because it's eventually going to not include the same language as in the House bill. Now, it does right now, but once it's amended, it won't be included, and it will look like a bill that does fund the health care law. So Cruz is saying it should be filibustered in the end. Debate should not be cut off because it will be amended, and when it's amended, the health care law money will be put back in.
So this is the time. This is the time he needs to do what he's doing, not later on after the new bill, if you will, emerges.
Well, it'll be too late because it will only take 51 votes.
Right.
And that's, of course, it's all Senate procedure is what is governing all of this. In fact, he can only talk until noon tomorrow because technically cloture has already been filed on this resolution, which means it's a set period of time for a person to talk. They can't do, that classic filibuster where you're able to speak until you literally can't stand anymore. Well, this is not going to be the case because they will gavel the session.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So
he can't keep going unless and if he does, they can. He can't keep going under the rules. So this is more of a symbolic move on his part because. He can look like. First of all, I don't know how long he's going to talk. We asked him in the hallway before he walked in the chamber, and he was a little bit vague about it. So no one's 100% sure. I see we've had 3 lawmakers on the floor now. Lee from Utah, Senator Lee, David Vitter from Louisiana. So we'll just see how long he can keep going for. And in the end, I think the votes will happen on this bill, and so ultimately for Cruz, it'll be how does he look after all that, and I think it will probably help his image.
It'll what his image? It'll what his image?
It will help his image.
Yeah, I believe so too. I think that these the left wingers in the party, the left wing media, they're attacking him. They've been attacking him from day one before there was any debate on this health care bill or any continuing resolution. They just despise him, and I think that the base of the party is the Ted Cruz, is appealing, is drawn to Ted Cruz and not to John McCain and Lindsey Graham.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, when you get into who the base of the party is, the mainstream Republican Party, many of these guys were around in 1995. We all know that government shutdown did not serve the party well. They lost a lot of seats in the House. The whole party was hurt by it. And the oppositional party is almost always blamed when there is a threat of a government shutdown or a government shutdown. So they are worried about that. And, we talked to a lot of senators today after they came out of their weekly lunch, and the Republicans almost uniformly were saying, look, we just don't want to tie this thing to government funding. We don't want to tie it to a potential shutdown. And then you have, a few people like Cruz and others who say that's exactly what we should be doing. This is the leverage. This is the best leverage we have. And that's where the fight is in the Senate as we speak. Cruz is just, he's launched his talk at 241. He's been going for a while now. He doesn't sound like he's ready to yield the floor. And it's making a huge statement. And I think it's yet to be seen which part of the Republican Party is going to come out on top on this one.
Now, is it possible, Susan, that he refuses to yield tomorrow at noon, let's say, and they call the sergeant at arms and they have to take him out? Is that possible?
Well, it strikes me that he's the kind of guy who's going to follow the rules of the Senate. And I think I heard him say a few times, that they're going to do everything within their power.
Right.
And they don't really have the power to hijack the Senate floor. I think that he has the power to talk until they gavel him.
Right. We're talking to Susan Ferrechio, Chief Congressional Correspondent, Washington Examiner, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Okay, but the House, at least last week, with the exception of one Republican, was united, and technically it was a bipartisan vote because 2 Democrats voted with every Republican but one. So whereas they're split in the Senate, they're not split in the House. Do you believe, as some do, that this was just Boehner saying, okay, I'll give you this step, we'll go this far, then it's up to the Senate, we know they're not going to pass it, and then eventually we'll back down, having at least put everybody on record as to where they stand on Obamacare, which will help us in the midterms? Or do you believe that they'll stick to their guns?
Well, I think the word back down is what I would suggest is probably not exactly what they're thinking. They do know that the bill the resolution will come back over to the House, and they know they're going to have to do something with it at that point. And I think their strategy is to get something passed on government funding that does not strip money out for the health care law. And that instead they will try to move the debate over implementation of the health care law to the next big fight, which is over the borrowing limit. We have to raise the borrowing limit. It's $6.7 trillion right now, and by mid-October we're going to need some more money. I think the GOP leadership wants to include Obamacare in that debate instead, because the public is more amenable to letting that funding limit go, to expire versus a government shutdown.
Okay. So they'll say, all right, we're united, but we understand the concern of the public, so we're gonna pass a continuing resolution which will fund Obamacare, but we're not going to raise the debt ceiling unless the president meets with us and talks about either postponing or delaying or getting rid of some or all of Obamacare, whatever they decide their strategy is, and then they will have that fight.
Yes, I mean, that's why you hear the president. Listen to what the president's saying right now. There's little hints from the way people are talking. They're saying, we're not negotiating on this. Well, why are they saying that? Because they know that's exactly where the Republicans are going to try to negotiate. They're saying, we're not negotiating on the debt ceiling because they're already drawing a line in the sand. They know that's where the fight's going to end up. And, of course, the real big question I have in my mind is how hard are the Democrats going to stick to that pledge. Just today, Harry Reid, the majority leader in the Senate, was telling us, was echoing the president on that, saying, we're not putting the defunding language in the debt ceiling debate either, because they know that's where this is going. Because this is all about internal strategy, which is mostly just mind-boggling to the public. And so you'll probably see a government funding bill go through that doesn't strip out money for the health care law, but it may address it in another way. For example, I know there's a resolution out there that would force the congressional staff to pay the same amount for their health insurance as people who are put into the exchanges. In other words, they wouldn't get the subsidy, the generous subsidy that they now receive from the government. As part of the,
am I wrong, Susan, that the president interjected personally in that, because there were threats, I guess, from the Democratic side as well as the Republican, of staffers that were ready to leave, and didn't he put that in there personally almost? And now you're saying that what the Republicans would be looking to have that modified so that they could claim some kind of victory in the continuing resolution?
Right, and that's one aspect. They could do it that way, or they could just talk about removing a part of Obamacare that would receive broad support or has received broad support in the past, and that is the medical device tax. It's a 2.3% tax that's going to be implemented on items ranging from surgical gloves to radiation equipment. It'll raise about $30 billion over the next decade, so it's a big chunk of paying for the health care law. But there are a lot of folks who don't like it because, for obvious reasons,
sure,
jobs, the costs are passed down to the patient.
So this, again, Susan, for my own edification and the audience, so this would be in the continuing resolution battle so that the Republicans can claim some victory, and then then that would be sent over to the Senate, and probably, I mean, if at that point they say no, they would look like the bad guys. But the rest of the battle for the rest of Obamacare would be held for the debt ceiling. Am I reading this right?
Yes, that's the strategy, because it can't work any other way. If they try to put the defunding Obamacare back in health care bill in the House, I mean, they're not going to do that because they know it's not going to pass over in the Senate. So it's about it's a hot potato, who wants to. Nobody wants to be blamed for this, and it's about trying to get this thing, the government funding bill, out of the Congress without too much political damage to anybody. And that's a lot of what goes on around here on a daily basis.
Right. All right. Well, Susan, very, very interesting. You explained it, and your predictions, I'm sure, are right on. And we'll talk to you next week, and we'll see where we stand. But we're in for a very interesting political time.
Thanks. I'm sorry about the background.
No, that's all right.
The Capitol is an echo chamber.
That's okay. I'm glad you're doing your job in addition to helping us out. Thank you, Susan.
Sure.
Okay, bye. Susan Ferrechio, ladies and gentlemen, Chief Congressional Correspondent for the Washington Examiner, acting as the Chief Congressional Correspondent for the Washington Examiner, and roaming the halls of Congress while she talks to us. Interesting. So just to summarize what she thinks will happen, the Senate, Cruz can only speak till noon tomorrow if he makes it that long. The Senate will vote. They will add funding back in for Obamacare. It will go to the House again. The House will say, okay, we're going to fund it in this continuing resolution to keep the government going for 3 months, but we're taking out this tax on the medical devices and whatever. She said one other thing possibly. Oh, yeah, the congressional staff would lose their subsidies, and they would be subjected to this like everybody else. And then the Republicans could claim victory of sorts. That goes back to the Senate. If the Senate rejects it on that, then the Senate will blatantly be to blame. So they'll probably acquiesce. And then the fight to defund all of Obamacare will then take place on the debt ceiling battle. So very interesting stuff. Very interesting. What do you think of the strategy? 855-777-9660, 855-777-9660. Steve Malzberg on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.
The Steve Malzberg Show.